Well, they say the U.S. has some of the most spoiled pets in the world, but with inflation pushing up the cost of everything from puppy chow to canine costumes, dog owners are finding it increasingly difficult to treat their furry friends. Jody Jacobs reports from New York.
It's that colorful time of the year again. The annual Pooches Parade in Tompkins Square here in New York City. Despite a few showers, dogs and their owners strutted their costumes, some more lavish than others. From a paw-powered taxi, an extraterrestrial canine, and an owner just thinking outside the box. But the rough economic times and inflation are not easy for pet owners. Prices in some cases fetching record highs, making it difficult for consumers to balance their budgets, something these dog lovers know all too well about.
It's so expensive to go to the vet now. I mean, you go in for a visit and it's going to be at least $250, maybe even $1,000, you know. So yeah, it's getting really expensive to have a pet.
Especially medical, you know, it's very expensive. But she has insurance, so it's like half and half. But it's very expensive to have a pup. I don't know how people can have 2, 3, 4.
It's tough. Doggy daycare went up quite a bit this year.
And one professor agrees. Holding on to a pet these days, he says, has become increasingly difficult.
This is definitely a new area of concern that's emerged where people have become, you know, with the economic times becoming increasingly more difficult, people have been questioning and trying to figure out how do they balance their own personal spending and their needs with the needs of their pets. And I think that that's one of the things that in the current economic climate is different than issues that we've seen in past climates, that there hasn't been that same level of concern during previous economic downturns that people are talking about right now.
But despite consumers barking at high prices, pets in the United States are still the most spoiled animals in the world, with their owners spending close to $137 billion last year, more than any other country. Americans adore their pets and will go to great lengths to ensure they live a life of luxury and comfort.
We spare no expense for him.
A recent survey by Forbes lists New York as one of the top states with the most spoiled dogs. 40% of New Yorkers say they spend more money spoiling their fabulous friends than spoiling their significant other. And if push comes to shove, they say they'll go the extra mile, even though it's not a walk in the park. Jody Jacobs, CGTN, New York.
Well, to talk more now on the cost of owning a pet, I'm joined by Josh Enomoto, contributor for InvestorPlace. Josh, thank you so much for coming on our show.
Thank you.
Well, Josh, give us a sense of just how much costs have gone up in the pet economy and in what particular sectors. I imagine it's pretty much across the board, and how inflation has made it much worse.
Sure. Well, as you know, prices have been wildly increasing across the board, as you just stated. However, pet owners have bore the brunt of the damage. So on a year-over-year basis, the costs related to pets and pet-related products and care has increased about 11%. And the inflation rate for the pet-related sector is twice that of regular goods and services. So again, yes, every household in the United States is feeling the pain of inflation, but pet owners are especially feeling the pain because they're, again, absorbing about 2 times the normal inflation rate.
So how are pet owners adjusting? We saw that in the story that just ran before you, that human owners are, you know, using their interests or taking their the pet's interests over their own interests. So are they kind of sacrificing their own costs, you know, for essentials to offset some of these costs for their own pets?
Yes, they are. I mean, there are practical measures that pet owners can take in terms of perhaps bundling certain promotions at retailers and making sure to when those promotions come up to purchase in bulk. But unfortunately, the harsh realities of the pet economy inflation has really started to impose harshness on pet owners. For example, I believe it was a Forbes article that mentioned about 46% of pet owners have reported either delaying or dropping altogether veterinary care. So it does indicate that there is significant pain. And while pet owners may be sacrificing, that reality it is starting to creep up on the wallet.
I also want to talk, Josh, about how the pet industry has evolved. I'm thinking about e-commerce. We're talking about pet tech, as well as some of these toys that are becoming more sustainable. Does that kind of contribute to this? Are those things costing more just on the surface?
Yeah, well, Grandview Research did an analysis on that very topic, and their analysts project that by 2027, the e-commerce segment of the pet economy should hit globally a revenue of about $55 billion. So that's about a 12% compound annual growth rate compared to levels seen in 2020. So there is a significant projected growth opportunity there. However, I'm also concerned about the broader health of the consumer economy. If inflation continues to rise higher and higher, that is going to crimp consumer sentiment. But then if it goes too high, of course, the Federal Reserve may have to get involved in terms of hawkish monetary policy. That could lead to a rough landing for the economy as opposed to the soft landing that the Fed is trying to aim for. And so that has significant implications on the job market. We're still seeing major corporations issue pink slips for their workers. So yes, e-commerce is developing. There has been innovations in terms of that sub-segment, but the broader consumer health is going to play a significant role in whether we can actually meet those projections.
We're focusing a lot on the U.S., but what about trends globally, if you can talk about that? Are we kind of seeing the same thing, same pattern?
Yeah, so very similar patterns. Maybe the magnitude is different across different countries, but the trend is towards pet adoption. So for in the United States in 2021, there were 977,000 pet adoptions being registered. In 2022, in Australia, the pet ownership rate was 48%. But back in 2019 in Australia, that pet ownership rate was 40%. So the COVID crisis helped to elevate that rate. We're seeing similar pet adoption trends in places like Singapore and in the Philippines. So the main motif, if you will, is that the loneliness crisis that emerged during the COVID-19 pandemic inspired pet adoption. And so globally, we are seeing an increase in that adoption rate.
Josh Enomoto, thank you so much for joining our program. Great talking with you.
Thank you.